Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review for a show that I hold very dear and near to my heart, my childhood, all of that. A show that came out on Cartoon Network in 1999 is when this began. Now, mind you, I was born in 94. That's going to matter because of my history of how I found out about this wonderful little show from Cartoon Network called Ed, Edd, and Eddy. Now, it came out the last year of the 90s, you know what I mean? The first ever episode, if I can look it up really quick on IMDb, if this shit would work for me, because the app likes to move around. The first ever episode came out January 4th of 1999. And at this current point, I had just turned 4 in November, right before that in 1998. Now, this show was something that I don't even think I saw until it was already about 2 or 3 years old. I don't think I even saw the show until probably 2000 or 2001, somewhere in there. Mainly because when I was a kid, I was not allowed to have cable in my room. A lot of kids weren't, obviously, because you can't trust kids with all the different kinds of things on TV, right? Smart move for my parents, even though I grew up on horror movies not too long after that. So, in my room, since I couldn't have cable, I had a TV and I had a VCR plugged up to it. To this day, I still own the things that I watched over and over and over and over again. During the regular parts of the year that weren't Christmas time, it was Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, in the golden special edition set, you know, when they started making changes back in the day. I still own that to this day. I watched that movie so much, so much, because at the time it was the only Star Wars movie that didn't scare me. And this was pre-Phantom Menace existing, right? Like, this was when it was in the works, right? So, I watched the hell out of that. I had Scooby-Doo VHS tapes that I still own to this day. And on those Scooby-Doo VHS tapes, because, you know, that's also Cartoon Network and Warner Brothers, there was a show that was advertised. And if I remember correctly, there were 2 different things that were shown, but I remember one specific teaser that was shown constantly, of a static background, and 3 young men running for their lives in a very happy, funny way, a cute way in the cartoon design they had going for them. At the time, being a massive fan of cartoons, for whatever reason, this art style, this static background, as in, when I say static, I don't mean like a picture, I mean like actual static, like when your TV used to go static, you know? Snowy, if you will. I saw them running, and above it said Ed, Edd, and Eddy, and I think either in the middle of the screen or at the end of this when they disappeared off the screen, it just said coming soon to Cartoon Network or something like that. I remember something about that happening. You might be able to find the old teasers here on YouTube. But anyway, Ed, Edd, and Eddy. They recently, as of last year at some point, there was the 30th anniversary in 2022 for Cartoon Network. And they put out 2 box sets, and I can't believe why the fuck you only put out 2 box sets, by the way, which, in this case, one of them is a straight-out lie. They put out the complete series of Ed, Edd, and Eddy and the complete series of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Now, I don't know about Foster's. I used to love it a lot. I've tried to rewatch some episodes recently, around Halloween, on some of the Halloween Cartoon Network DVDs and stuff. That show, to me, didn't age as well, or grow as good, if you will, as something like Ed, Edd, and Eddy, Codename Kids Next Door, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. The shows that I think deserved to have a box set. Now, Courage the Cowardly Dog already does. Johnny Bravo didn't get one. Dexter's Laboratory didn't get one, even though I own a bootleg complete series of that. Don't judge me. I love these shows. I think they deserve better. And Cartoon Network and Warner Brothers do not treat you as the audience, especially us 90s kids, properly. Look at Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon put out a box set for pretty much every series, including Jimmy Neutron, which a lot of people don't even talk about that anymore. You know, it's kind of sad. But I wanted this, and I didn't even know it was coming out. Matter of fact, I'm going to buy the Foster's set when I get a chance to. I just have so much else I'd rather collect right now. But I was in Walmart around my birthday, right before my birthday, and I had received at my grandparents' house on my dad's side for a little bit of a birthday present, you know, because they weren't going to see me on my birthday. I don't live nearby to them. And I had other plans with my wife and my mom and my grandfather. But anyway, when I was over there, I got some money from them as presents for Christmas, or for my birthday coming up. And I went ahead and went out to Walmart. I wanted to pick up a couple of things. I wanted to pick up Modern Warfare 2's new game, And then I realized they're charging $70 for most new games, and I was like, fuck that. But then I went over to the movies section. I happened to be wandering around, and I saw this set for Ed, Edd, and Eddy, the complete series. I nearly shit bricks. You have no idea how long it's been that I've wanted to go back and watch this. Now, just as a heads up, not everything is in here, which is what I meant earlier when I said it's a fucking lie for this. I don't know about the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends set, but the Ed, Edd, and Eddy set does not have everything in it. Mainly the specials. Mainly because also the movie is not included, which is the definitive end of the show. I'm going to do a separate review for the movie in the next video immediately after this, so hopefully you'll tune in for that. It's called The Big Picture Show. But they used to outsource, in the latter seasons, the big specials. So for example, the Valentine's Day special is not in here. The Halloween special called like Boo Ha Ha or whatever, that's not in here. And the Christmas special that I do own, as a matter of fact, from another set, this is one of those random Christmas and Halloween DVDs. This one happens to be called Christmas Rocks, or Cartoon Network Christmas Rocks. The episode on here is called Jingle Jingle Jangle. Now, a lot of these specials are typically the length of the regular episode. I think one of them, maybe the Halloween special, is like a two-parter type of thing. So like an hour long, let's say, or 45 minutes, somewhere in there. I could be wrong about that, though, so don't quote me on that. But I remember wanting to see those specials again. I remember Ed, Edd, and Eddy being such a bizarre show because most of the time when I was growing up watching this, when I got to watch it on cable every once in a while, I loved it so much, but I noticed in the latter couple of seasons, it's like the kids went back to school after the summer ended. Because most of this show, at least in the first like 4 seasons of the 6 that exist, take place during the summertime with the kids partying and hanging out in the cul-de-sac where they all live. And that stuff's great. The school stuff of the show really isn't as good, and it kind of surprised me. I'll get into that more later. But anyway, the specials pretty much are all centered around the school time later in the show. And the Big Picture Show movie is kind of that fall setting too, with the kind of color changes they do for the show on the palettes and all of that. The designs of certain things are sharpened a lot for that movie. But those things were outsourced to a different company, apparently, or a different department in Cartoon Network. And apparently there's some kind of, from what I understand, a rights issue that they could not include that in this box set as the complete series. Now, that's bullshit, in my opinion. I think it's ridiculous. I think that, don't call it the complete series. Don't call it that. I don't know what you could call it instead, but as of what Cartoon Network themselves made, this is the complete series. But I will say this. Going back, getting the chance to watch Ed, Edd, and Eddy all over again was so special. I burned through this entire 10-disc CD collection, whatever. Let me open this up really quick to be sure that everything's in here. Yeah, 10 discs. I burned through this super fast. Of course, every episode of the show, out of the 80 episodes in total, which isn't very long if you really think about it, but it's probably one of the longest running cartoons from Cartoon Network, aside from, like, again, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Codename Kids Next Door. When you look at something like Camp Lazlo, which I would also like to own, I like that show too. In recent reruns I've watched, I still like it. When you look at something like those shows, like Camp Lazlo, or something that I can't stand, like Uncle Grandpa, or Flapjack. Those things didn't last very long. There's probably good reason for it. A lot of them suck. But it was so nice to sit down and rewatch Ed, Edd, and Eddy's complete series. I had a blast. I had a really good time with this. More than I could probably ever explain to you, as somebody who was a massive fan of the show, who grew up watching this so much from like the age of 4 or 5 onward. Mainly 5 or 6, probably. But I remember watching this so much. Every single Friday on Cartoon Network, they had this thing called Friday Nights. And they would have like a host, it was a dude, and they would have, he pretty much stuck around the entire time. I can't remember, his name was like Justin or something. And then they would have, there was one white lady who I swore to God was Tara Strong. Apparently it wasn't. I guess not. Her name was even Tara, I believe. And I think at one point she either was fired or quit or something like that. They replaced her with a really pretty black girl too. I can't remember her name either. I think it was Stephanie, I believe. I'm really bad with names, as you guys can tell. If it's not somebody I grew up around, it takes me a long time to get used to somebody's name. In real life, in movies, TV shows, especially right now where I'm watching Ash vs. Evil Dead, having a really hard time with names. Anyway, that's a part of me and a part of me getting old at the same time mixed together. Oh well. But Ed, Edd n Eddy, the complete series, when I started actually getting to watch the show back in the day, I loved it. And mainly because of, again, the art. It's such a beautiful, colorful show, even compared to all of the things that were coming out around this time. But the art style itself was so distinct. So distinct in a way that I don't have words to really explain to you. It looked so colorful in the sense of like a lot of kids' video games and stuff, which at the time was popular for my age too, right? The 90s were really about color, and that was cool. I loved that about it. But Danny Antonucci, who was the creator of this show, he wrote a bunch of these episodes, if not most of them. He directed a bunch, if not most of them. He made one of the most amazing cartoons I've ever seen in my life, and they picked the perfect cast for every single character on this show. Remember when people gave a shit enough to make kids' entertainment clever? To give it clever writing? To give it clever characters? Characters that even adults could enjoy. My parents still to this day love Ed, Edd n Eddy. They do. They have wonderful memories about the show, not just from watching it with me, but because it was genuinely funny. And now as an adult, I understand what they mean, because I loved it as a kid. Watching it now as a box set, even with my wife in the room who also knew about the show, didn't watch it much as a kid. She was a Disney kid more than I was, even though I loved Disney Channel back in the day. Now it's just propaganda. Anyway, she even loved a lot of this and laughed through a lot of it, like myself. There are so many jokes as an adult that you can still laugh about. Kind of like, it's not even like in a perverted way, kind of like how Johnny Bravo is. Johnny Bravo was more adult than I ever knew it was when I rewatched quite a few of the episodes from the first season released from Cartoon Network years ago. Johnny Bravo surprised me with using the words like virgin, you know? A lot. a lot. There's a reason Cartoon Network stays away from Johnny Bravo. They kind of consider him a pervert now, like he was supposed to be, you know? But he was hilarious. Why would you not love that character? But Ed, Edd n Eddy, they've been neglected for so long, and it's so sad that that happened too, because of how much fun they are to watch, because of how funny they actually are. I'll get into the characters later on. I'll talk about my favorites, my least favorites, whatever, but I pretty much enjoy every aspect of this show, aside from that school setting that happens later on in the show, which again, I'll talk more about that too. Now, just another thing before I really get into the show too, after 13 minutes of rambling, I just really want to make this a passionate review to really give you a lot of ideas about what I think of the show, what I love about it, what I want to break down about this amazing, incredible show. So, at one point, Cartoon Network put out the first couple of seasons, maybe even the third season, which I don't own, but the first couple of seasons, I remember for a long time there, I realized maybe I could buy seasons 1 and 2, or even all of the seasons of Ed, Edd n Eddy. I looked it up on Amazon, and season 2 was going for like $20. Season 1, however, was sitting at about $110. Yeah. I didn't buy that shit. For like 10 episodes, no. I'm good. A lot of these seasons are very short, by the way. So after seeing that, my heart got kind of crushed, and I moved along. But then one day, I happened to be wandering around with my wife before we were married, and we were in Walmart. As a matter of fact, it always seems like Walmart is the only place that ever gets these seasons, these sets, anything like that. It's very strange. I wish there was better warning, though. I wish they would put, like, Cartoon Network TV commercials up or something where I would know that this stuff is coming out. Put it on your Warner Brothers app or your DC app or something so people know, man. People like myself would love to pick up stuff like this if I knew it was coming out. God knows how many releases I probably missed of things I love a lot that I've always wanted to rewatch or own because of no advertising. Dragon Ball Z Infinite Worlds, the old game for PS2. Great example. Didn't know that existed until about 5 years after it had come out. And now it's one of my favorite Dragon Ball Z games. But anyway, that's another story. Ed, Edd n Eddy, the complete series, is something that I am so happy is out. And I did get to watch, before I forget, I did get a chance to watch the 3 specials and the movie, mainly because all of them are on Amazon Prime. If you're a Prime member like I am, you can watch them all. Apparently the whole series is on Prime, which, again, made me feel like an asshole. But I like physical media. I'm glad I got to own this, even if it was about $50 or $40, somewhere in there. It was worth the money, because I collect things, I like to watch things, and I watch a lot of stuff. So at some point, probably every year, I'll probably sit down and put out some time to watch Ed, Edd n Eddy because I love it so much. It reminds me so much of a great time in my life when my parents were still together, and yeah, I had these wonderful friends I talked to every single day, basically, hung out with every single day. And on Fridays, when they would play the new episodes of Ed, Edd n Eddy on Friday nights, the cartoon or the cartoon show I was talking about a little bit ago, when they would play the new episodes of like Ed, Edd n Eddy, Billy and Mandy, all of these shows, all of us would stop hanging out on Fridays, probably about 6 or 7 when that would start. We'd all rush home. We all lived in the same general area. We would all rush home, and we would watch the new episodes, and then we'd see each other probably on the weekends, or we'd wait till Monday and hang out, and we'd talk about what the new episode had. We did this so much as a kid, man. Me, my best friend TC, that I still talk to this day, and another kid named Andrew. Andrew was an awesome kid, too. Loved that kid. Haven't seen him in a long time, in like 10 years. Anyway, so what was this show about? Getting into the actual show after 15 minutes. Ed, Edd n Eddy. This is about 3 friends that all happen to have the same name. Ed, the first name, in the title, is the fellow with the green jacket, as you can see in the picture I have here. I figured I'd pick something that wasn't just the DVD box set cover that's just blue and has Cartoon Network 30 on the top. I wanted to pick what we all know as an image from this show. Even if you only seen one episode of the show, you've seen the whistling intro theme song that I love so much, which, by the way, the music in this show was so good all of the time. Even if it was repetitive, it was the same thing all the time, and it really worked every single time. It just fit the world they built for this show. Anyway, he's the one with the green jacket on. That's Ed, with 1 D in it. Now, the one with the orange shirt and the purple pants and the black sock hat is Ed, with 2 Ds. They call him Double D, right? And the one in the yellow shirt, many of you know, is named Eddy. He's kind of a greedy, scummy, rip-off con artist, right? Now, what he is, basically, is the instigator with these other 2 friends of his who are not bad guys. Eddy's kind of a bad guy, but kind of deep down, he seems like he's a decent person. Eddy, is kind of scummy. He likes to scam kids in the neighborhood. Actively tries to scam people. Kind of like a used car dealer, That's what his whole character is. He's the shortest of the 3, and he kind of screams and yells a lot to make up for his height. There's a lot of that too. But Double D is very humble. He's very quiet. He's very smart. He has a lot of inventions to kind of do the very creative, cartoonish things they do. But it's not just like they scam kids like, hey, look, if you look in this cellar or this clown, I messed up my joke. If you look in this this storm drain, you can see a clown down there. Only 25 cents, which is what they charge everybody for everything because it'll give them enough money to go to the candy store and buy Jawbreakers. That's a real thing in the show, by the way. But he doesn't just do stupid, simple, lying scams like a lot of people. It's very elaborate. He'll have Double D build these crazy inventions, if you will, kind of like in a Codename Kids Next Door precursor way. Like, in Codename Kids Next Door, they would have these elaborate tree houses and rockets that could go to space and shit. That's kind of what they have here, but not, like, to that degree where they can go to, like, space and all of that. They could have had a really cool crossover between Codename Kids Next Door and Ed, Edd n Eddy, and had Double D be the one who invented all of the things for the Codename Kids Next Door kids. They really could have done that. They never took the chance to do it. Remember the old Michael Jordan quote, "You miss every shot you don't take." Cartoon Network. You missed it. Anyway, and Ed, the one with the 1 D in his name, the one with the green jacket, the red and white striped shirt, this fella is just plain dumb. And he is so lovable. He was probably my least favorite of all of the characters in the show when I was a kid. But I loved him at the same time. Just like now, he is so goofy, and I love this guy. He has a unibrow. He's just weird, and he's funny. I love the shit that Ed says in this show. He just makes it so watchable. He kind of makes us be able to transition from scene to scene, and the kind of goofy costumes that Eddy and Double D will have Ed put on for the show to kind of sell their scams to local kids and stuff in their cul-de-sac in the suburbs they live in. It's just funny. He's just really, really funny. He's really enjoyable to watch. Now, we have kids in this cul-de-sac, and I kind of want to go through them briefly and kind of discuss who they are, what they're like, so on and so on. I guess I'll start it with the closest to our main characters. By the way, there's no parents in the show. You never see anybody, it's not like even like a Charlie Brown type of thing where you hear him go womp womp, womp womp. It's nothing like that. You might see an arm of a parent at one point, or like a leg. Kind of like in Tom and Jerry. I think it's a throwback to that. But usually it's just the kids doing their thing during the summertime, right? In this city, this cul-de-sac with alleyways and stuff. You really don't go outside of the alleyways in the cul-de-sac, except for in the latter seasons when you do the whole school setting, where they go to school and they are back in the fall and they have like jackets on and they change the art style a little bit, sharpen it up, make the colors a little bit darker because of the fall setting and nature of it. But most of the time it's very bright, a lot of blues, a lot of yellows. The main characters, of course, are pink, orange, and yellow, so they have a lot of that in here too. But let's talk about some of the other characters I was gonna bring up. So the closest to the group is probably Ed, the dumb one's youngest sister, Sarah. She is mean as hell. It's kind of this very fun, cute way of playing about how siblings fight all the time. He's her big brother. He wants to take care of her and stuff, but she constantly ruins everything he does, and kind of vice versa. More vice versa than otherwise, in the sense of he ruins more of her day than she ruins his. Now, she has a best friend who's a very effeminate, goofy kid with a retainer that I still don't know what it's connected to. It's supposed to be his teeth, I guess, but it doesn't even touch his teeth. It's just like around his head with a belt buckle on the back of it. It's very fucking weird. Anyway, this kid is named Jimmy. Jimmy is one of the... he's probably like one of my least favorite characters on the show now, but he is so prissy and funny in a way that I don't think anybody could have done that character now in 2023. They would have ruined it. They would have went out of their way to say he was gay or this or that. But it doesn't really matter with the Jimmy that we got from this show, because he's a very developed character, and watching it all the way through this time, the whole series, I realize how elaborate this kid thinks. Sometimes he's just a very, again, prissy type of kid who just is just around. He likes bunnies. He likes nature. He likes butterflies, that kind of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that. It's just, he's not what you would think this character would be like in other episodes where he does kind of go bad and work with Ed, and Eddy. He does scams sometimes. He sets up things to frame Ed, and Eddy on the Valentine's Day special. He's a very unique character in that way. And again, I don't think he could be made now. They would either water him down to the point where he would just not even have the voice that he has, which is very girly and whatever. And I still don't know if a boy or a girl played this character. He's fantastic. She's fantastic. Whoever played Jimmy, props to you. Every voice actor in the show that I'll get to later killed it. They all killed it. They all did an amazing job. But whoever played Jimmy, my God, they are talented. Now, moving along from Sarah and Jimmy, let's talk about the town bully. His name is Kevin. And Kevin wears a red hat backwards, which, by the way, this is a quick thing to talk about. Why the fuck are every single boy in this show like bald and have like 3 strands of hair on their head? Have you noticed that? We never see under Double D's hat, but Eddy has like 3 strands. Ed barely has any hair on his head. Johnny barely has any hair. I'll talk about him later. Kevin, at numerous points in the show, especially later on, he loses his hat, or he'll drop it, or whatever. And he has like 3 strands of hair on his head, or it's little pieces of hair. What is it with that? Jimmy's hair is basically part of his head. I guess it's supposed to be a cool, kind of flippant haircut, I guess, but it's the same color as his skin, so it's like, does it really fucking count? But like every dude in the show has like no hair, or has like 3 strands of hair. It's like they were living near a toxic waste dump or something. I don't know. But anyway, Kevin rides kind of a bike that's shaped like a really cool Wild Hogs motorcycle. Like something that Orange County choppers would have put out, you know? And this guy, it's not even that Kevin's a bully. Kevin is a bully in the sense of, in the world of Ed, and Eddy, he looks like a bully because he addresses them. But when you're an adult and you realize he's not the bad guy, Ed, and Eddy are. he's actually the good guy, because he gets mad when they rip people off. He gets mad when they rip him off. He doesn't like the fact that they charge kids money from their allowances from their parents and whatever to scam them. He stands up and beats up Ed, and Eddy constantly. He makes fun of them. He calls them the word dork. And frankly, Kevin is funnier now as an adult because I realize he's the good guy. And he has a friend too who's a local new kid, kind of newer kid, who happens to be an immigrant from outside of the U.S., assuming that Ed, and Eddy takes place in the U.S. But even when I watched behind-the-scenes stuff, not on this box set, by the way, you don't really get much of a behind-the-scenes type of thing on this set, just so you know, the complete series set that came out for the 30th anniversary. I watched stuff online, and no one could really give a definitive answer of where the accent that this other character I talked about being an immigrant named Rolf, no one can figure out where he's from in reality. He's just kind of a European dude that no one really has a definitive location for where he came from. The voice actor for Rolf is so fucking funny. He's so clever. He's so subtle about how he says certain things. He's hilarious. The stuff that they have Rolf say are brilliant. He's just brilliant. He's a funny-ass character. He's funnier now than he's ever been. I always liked Rolf as a kid. My friends Andrew and TC and I quoted this character so much growing up. And to this day, when I just want to mess with my wife because she watched the show with me, I have always called her Ed Boy. Not like as a nickname, just to do it. You know, and I'll do it in like the Rolf accent, which I'm not going to do here because it's not good, but it's not supposed to be good, so who cares? But I love how he constantly doesn't understand the culture in America, or this suburban area. He has all these weird traditions, maybe religious, I don't know, of involving eating a lot of meat and raising kind of animals on his farm. He doesn't really have any grass in his backyard because it's very farm-like. He has a pet pig named Wilbur. He has a goat. Just all of this stuff that he does. He's just so funny, dude. I love this character. He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. The way he's written, they could never do him nowadays because of how they're so afraid of offending everybody. He, instead of being a character that would be the immigrant character who has an accent, who's different from everybody else, but is included with the local kids because he's a fun guy. Instead of having that, they would make him check all these boxes now in 2023. I'm so glad that Ed, and Eddy, with the things they did here, the kind of jokes they made, that they were able to miss all of that bullshit years ago. Because Danny Antonucci killed it with this. Everything, the writing, the directing, all of it. It's all fantastic. Moving along to another character, Johnny. Johnny is nicknamed Melonhead because apparently he has the biggest head in the show, but he has like the same sized head as everybody else. It's just a little bit wide. Not like a Hey Arnold wide, but like just a little wide. He is a total fucking kook. He is hilarious. I love this kid. The voice actor they had for this guy, he's this very short man, and I saw him on some of the behind the scenes stuff for the GameCube Ed, and Eddy Misadventures game that I played years ago. I still have it, but I watched it on a behind the scenes thing on YouTube they have posted online. And this guy, watching him do the Johnny voice is so funny. Johnny is hilarious in the show, just like Rolf. Like, this kid is clearly some kind of schizophrenic. He has a little piece of wood he carries around called Plank, and apparently he can talk to Plank, and Plank talks to him, but no one else can hear it. And this kid, I'm telling you, the voice acting for Johnny, the kind of creepy, wild, crazy laugh that he delivers is so funny, and I cannot see any other voice fitting this character. If they would ever reboot Ed, and Eddy at some point in the future, it's a bad idea if you don't bring everybody back, because I don't think anybody could do the Johnny voice the way this old man did, who played him. He's hilarious. He is so funny. The stuff that he will mumble under his breath is hysterical. I don't think anybody could write this show except for the people who were involved writing this show. It was so brilliant, and again, you could not do a character like Rolf, Johnny, or Jimmy nowadays because they would fuck that up. They would make them all check boxes. This whole crazy kid who talks to a piece of wood all the time is so clever in the way it's executed. And even like his other little adventures he has on the side, like for example, he's apparently a superhero called Melonhead or something like that. I finished the show a couple of weeks back, maybe 3 weeks ago, so I'm a little out of it on a lot of the details, but a lot of it stuck with me because I was totally stuck to this. Usually if I'm watching something, even if I like it, I have my phone to my side, I might check a thing here or there quickly, then go back to the movie or show I'm watching. I didn't do that with this show. All 10 discs, all 80 episodes of this show, I was pretty much glued to it. Pretty much. And I couldn't put my phone anywhere near my face because I wanted to watch the show and I actively wanted to be involved. which again should show you what happened to cartoons now. What happened to TV, where we would rather be on our phones looking at the internet as a distraction because there's so much filler and dullness within a lot of TV shows and movies now. Explain that to me. I don't think there's really an excuse for it. And I don't think it's based around me being very nostalgic about the show. I think this is just a great show, plain and simple. Pretty much perfect. Aside from when they go back to school, the episodes kind of become less funny. They kind of become a little bit more typical cartoonish and what people probably who have never seen Ed, Edd and Eddy think Ed, Edd and Eddy is like, more than likely. I loved it. I had such a blast. Now, the last character I can think of that I don't think there's any more is a character that everybody, mainly all the guys in the town, are obsessed with, named Naz. She's supposed to be the hot chick or whatever. And she's fun. You know, I like her. I think she's a cool character. She's probably my least favorite now. There's really not much to her, aside from being the hot chick that everybody likes, everybody's friends with, everybody wants to be friends with. There's really not much to her. But then we have the final three characters. I'm not good with their names. I know one is named Lee, one is named May. I cannot for the life of me remember the other names, the other final person's name. Anyway, I don't know whose name is for what. But there's these three girls called the Canker Sisters. They live in a trailer park near the cul-de-sac. The Canker Sisters. I never knew what a canker was. A canker sore as a kid. And so, being an adult, realizing the word canker and what that meant, and that they're kind of a pest, was hysterical to me. It was absolutely great. Now, let me tell you, a lot of the comedy that I think is more adult-centric, that kids are not going to get, are things like that canker sore joke. Or like, for example, I learned something new about this show as I watched it this time around. When they are first introduced, in like the first few episodes of the show, maybe even the first episode, I can't remember what the first episode of this show was, but in the very first time that the Canker Sisters are shown in this show, they bring Ed, Edd and Eddy to their trailer. They make them dinner, which are like these really awful looking cheeseburgers with like machine gears in it and shit. But at one point they give the guys robes because apparently they got soaking wet. They give them their dad's robes. And you would assume it would just be, you know, the same dad, right? But they all look different, all three of these sisters. They're all actually different. They're actually sisters. They're not like friends who call themselves sisters. No, they're actually related. They are sisters with the same mom. None of that is said, but do you want to know how this is explained, right? About how they have clearly different dads. The three robes that they get for Ed, Edd and Eddy, which by the way, they all consider these guys their boyfriends. Each of the robes they gave these guys had different names, like Bubba, Jim, Bob, stuff like that. Dude, when I was watching this, about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, about a month ago, whenever it was that I started watching the set, I'm going to tell you, when I realized that they all had different dads, not that there's anything wrong with that, I'm not saying anything mean like that, when I realized that the trailer park trash characters had three different dads, but were all sisters with the same mom, that was such a funny-ass joke that I don't think anybody realized that was a thing. I never knew this was a thing until I watched it this time around at almost 30 years old. That's how clever this show was. You tell me that wasn't clever. You tell me that wasn't a clever way of showing this stuff and not telling it to you. Being a joke that parents would get and kids wouldn't even think about it, you know? It's brilliant. The show itself is absolutely brilliant. It's, again, clever. That's the biggest word to describe this show. Now let's talk about the art style. I talked about it being pretty and bright. I forgot to mention the fact that it's such an odd style. Unlike all of these other shows like Billy and Mandy, Codename Kids Next Door, that have very, after the first pilot episode, pretty much have very tight, well-colored, very straightforward animation, right? But Ed, Edd and Eddy did something a little bit different, being kind of the precursor setup to what I think really established a lot of Cartoon Network aside from the obvious like Johnny Bravo or Powerpuff Girls. They had this show have animation that even if a character is standing still, it's like the outline of their body is still moving, like kind of flicking left and right. Which is such a strange choice, mind you. And yet it works so well, and I don't know why it works. It just does. For some reason, I really like that, and I really think it fits so well for this show. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is. It fits so well for this show. And it fits the universe of this show. But other than that, I've already talked about the music. I've talked about everything about the show I love. I'm going to scroll through and try to figure out what I think is the best episode, which, by the way, each episode is about, 25 minutes or so. They're kind of doing what Billy and Mandy used to do, about having each segment of the show, or each episode, be divided into 2 segments. So you'd have, maybe a 10-minute or 11-minute long, quote-unquote, half of the episode, and then the other half would be a completely other standalone story. Later on in the show, in the last couple of seasons, they kind of do what you kind of consider a 2-parter, but not like Goosebumps, where you would have 45 minutes, 2-parter. It's 2 episodes together, 2 half-hour episodes, nothing like that. Sometimes they would do one full 30-minute long episode of just one storyline. That only happened 2 or 3 times in the entirety of the show, but still, it happened every once in a while. But I don't really know what my favorite episode might be. There is one that, to me, really stands out a lot. It happened to do with, basically, Ed, the dumb one, is a big monster movie fan, by the way, which being a horror fan growing up, I never connected with him on that. And now I'm like, this could have been my favorite character growing up, and I didn't even think about it, because we would have related so much. I love monster movies. I love 1950s sci-fi horror, which is pretty much what he watches, There was literally a poster in Ed's basement bedroom that's just a big-ass bloody knife being held by somebody's hand, and I think it just says gore above it, something like that, so it's kind of just like a reference to Halloween or something. It's like slasher movies and stuff. I think that's funny. I think it's really funny, as a matter of fact. But there was an episode about him in a marathon he wanted to watch on TV, and I thought that was kind of fun. It's like Double D and Eddy wanted to watch this as well, and he's trying to get them to sit down and watch it with him, but everybody keeps interrupting him during the movie marathon. That was really funny. I like that a lot. The different adventure they went onto that just to watch this stupid show, or this series of TV movies or whatever they were going to do, this marathon. That was really funny. I enjoyed it a lot. But pretty much, I'll be honest with you, it's hard to pick out an episode that stands out above everything else, because everything typically, until the seasons that include just going to school for 2 seasons, the first 4 or 5 seasons are pretty much consistent on how funny they are, how creative they are. And yeah, I said creative. It might sound kind of repetitive of just them developing schemes constantly to rip people off, but not really. You would think it'd be more repetitive than it is. You really would think that, but it manages to be creative and do the story in a different way every single time, most of the time. It tries. And again, that cleverness, that creativity behind the scenes from people like Danny Antonucci, the cast, who are all great. It's amazing to me what they were able to do with this awesome little cartoon that really, in my opinion, could have never been as good as it was then, now, if they made it now. As I said, a lot of things they got away with back in the day they could never get away with now, and it's kind of sad that that's the case. But anyway, backing out to talk about the cast on IMDb. That's why I said backing out, by the way. It might not make any sense to why I said that, but there you go. I hit the little triangle arrow thing. I went backwards. I want to talk about our main 3 here. All of the cast are good, by the way, like I said. They're all great. But I want to thank not only Danny Antonucci, but the 3 main leads. Matt Hill, who played Ed, which, by the way, somebody reported years ago that this dude was dead. He's not dead. He still works. He just doesn't have a career. As awful as that sounds, they don't have him on pretty much anything now, which is sad. The dude's very talented, really, really funny guy. I loved watching the behind-the-scenes stuff on that Misadventures GameCube video game for the show, and seeing these characters, these actors, behind the scenes and doing their voice acting on microphones. It was really funny. But Matt Hill played Ed, the dumb one, in the green jacket. Amazing actor. Really love this guy. Thank you for being this character. Thank you for bringing this character to life from my childhood, Sam Vincent, who you probably know from a lot of stuff, man. He is into Animaniacs. He's in so many things, dude. The dude is incredible. He's probably the best actor of all 3 of them, but he's incredible. He played Double D. Sam Vincent kills this show. He is so fucking good. The amount of how fast he has to speak to play Double D is incredible. But I noticed in the behind-the-scenes stuff that I'm not really sure if they had to like speed up his dialogue or something, because when he's actually recording in the booth for the video game Misadventures, he's not speaking as fast as Double D typically does. And a lot of the lines he's quoting for that video that he's recording, I don't know if it's like he's doing his best or he's not really trying, or I don't know. But it seems to me like they must be taking his pretty fast recording and then speeding it up even more for the show. I don't know. He also sounds like they kind of had to pitch and auto-tune his voice a little bit, because he doesn't sound like as high-pitched as Double D sounds, typically, when he does different things. And he has a microphone attached to him. It's not like an echoey room, but he doesn't sound exactly like Double D. So Sam Vincent's voice acting stuff for this show, a little bizarre to me. I kind of want to know the ins and outs and find out more about it. But anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there from what I saw in the behind-the-scenes of that game. Thank you again, Sam Vincent, for bringing a character that was pretty much my favorite character in the show when I was a kid to life. I can't see any other voice for Double D. He's perfect. And then you have Tony Sampson, who played Eddy. In that behind-the-scenes stuff, when Tony laughs or talks or screams even at somebody behind the scenes on the Misadventures video game, he sounds just like Ed, and Eddy. And I think it's funny, too, because even Danny Antonucci on that interview stuff for that game, on the behind-the-scenes work, even he brought up the fact that these characters not only sound like they're like the personalities of these people, the way they're written and everything, they even kind of look like all three of them. In like an absurd, kind of taking these people and doing these cartoon, in-the-park paintings type of way. And he's right. They all look just like their actors. And it's fucking weird. I never realized that. And the other characters, they're really not like that. Like the Kanker sister voice actress is one of them at least, May, I believe, the one with the yellow hair. She's the same chick who plays Naz. And neither of those characters, aside from Naz's haircut, really look like that actress. It's kind of amazing when you don't see that really with the other characters. I mean, you look at Johnny. Johnny is a small, crazy black kid. He's played by an old white guy who's perfect for that role. None of these other characters ended up morphing into the voices of their actors and actresses. But for some reason, Matt Hill, Sam Vincent, and Tony Sampson look just like Ed, and Eddy. Or Ed, and Eddy look just like them. Anyway, really cute little fun fact about that. I thought it was really fun when I saw that in the behind-the-scenes stuff. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan, and I recommend Ed, and Eddy, very obviously. The specials that I watch that are not included in the box set, I'll be honest with you, they're probably the worst things from the show. Now, Jingle Jingle Jangle, the Christmas special, is not really that bad. It's okay. I watch it pretty much every Christmas. Pretty much. But the actual, the Halloween special, it's not really that great. It's kind of boring, frankly. That and the Valentine's Day special, that's very kind of not that great, but then has a couple of sweet moments to it. Even these episodes that are kind of lackluster in a wonderful, wonderful, recommendable TV show cartoon, of all things, even though they're not great, they are better than almost anything that comes out now. From Cartoon Network, from cartoons, even stuff that came out 10, 15 years ago, like Uncle Grandpa and shit like that. This is such a great show. Ed, and Eddy, have you seen it? What does it mean to you? Is this your childhood? It's my childhood. And again, I want to thank all three of these main actors, and I want to thank Danny Antonucci for bringing something like this to life and making it such a big part of my life. For so long, since I was like 4 or 5 or 6, I have known about Ed, and Eddy. That's more about my life that I've known these characters than I haven't. And even when my parents love these characters, that should tell you how good this cartoon was once upon a time, because my parents are not cartoon people at all. If it ain't Looney Tunes, my dad doesn't give a shit about it. If it's not horror movies or thrillers, my mom doesn't give a shit about it. And I don't think it's because they gave a shit about me. I think it's because the cartoon, again, is clever and it's fun. It's just fun. Even the silliness about getting jawbreakers. The amount of going out of their way to do these crazy elaborate things to get money off of kids in the neighborhood just to get candy. Jawbreakers. It's fucking funny. It really is. Anyway, with all that being said, I'm a huge fan. I'm so glad this box set came out, even if it's not complete. I hope at some point that Warner Brothers, Cartoon Network, somebody will have the brain to realize that they need to put the specials and the movie in a set and release it. And maybe they're working on that now, I don't know. But we all need to demand that shit. Because I'm sick of these shows not putting everything in the set. Everybody on Amazon in the reviews section are mad about it that know about those episodes missing. So really you have 3 specials in a movie that are all missing. You really don't have the entire 80 episodes of this show. You have like 77, I guess. You know? It's a shame. But even so, I'm glad I own it. I'm glad I can watch this. I'm glad the other episodes that are missing are on Prime and I can watch those, including the movie. Even if the movie wasn't that great, which that's a story for the next video. As I said, I'll review that next. Check out that review if you want to. I had never seen the film. This is my first time ever watching it, so I have some opinions about that. But anyway, have you seen the show? Do you love it as much as I do? Are you a big fan of this? Are you a little fan of it? What do you think about it? How recent has it been since you've watched this cartoon or anything like it from that day and age? Like Codename Kids Next Door, Camp Lazlo, Foster's, whatever. What do you think about that? What do you think about old Cartoon Network versus more recent Cartoon Network? I'd love to hear all that down below too. Anyway, thank you all for listening to me ramble for 45 minutes about a show that means so much to me. At some point in the future, once I get through some of these newer games that I picked up since Christmas for PS4 and whatever, I plan on trying to, God willing, play and review the Ed, Edd n Eddy Misadventures game, because I really wanted to complete it. I loved the game when I played it back in the day, like 10 years ago, but I never finished it, and I don't know why. I think I got stuck or I got bored, something like that probably happened. Probably got stuck, though. But anyway, thank you for watching, guys. God bless you all. And by the way, the show ended in 2008. This show went for 9 years on TV, barely putting out stuff towards the end of the show, which happens with a lot of shows like Goosebumps and whatever. I get it, I understand. But it went on for 9 years, and the reruns that played over and over and over again, dude, they were rewatchable. And that's the biggest thing with this show, too, I wanted to throw in. Just at the tail end of this video, this show is so rewatchable. You can have it on in the background and still laugh about the things you'll hear, the sound effects you hear, which are kind of reused over and over again, by the way. Screaming, yelling, different quotes, things Rolf and Johnny will say and Jimmy too. Those things will get reused constantly in the show. But it works. It works for the style of show they did here, the style of comedy they did. But anyway, I love it deeply. I hope that you guys love it too. If you haven't seen it ever in your entire life, my God, do I recommend it to you. If you happen to have Prime, you need to start watching this now. Your kids will love it, you'll love it. I think everybody who watches this show will love it, unless they have a stick up their ass. Then they're not probably going to love it. But I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. I think it's super fun. And I recommend it to everybody who hasn't seen it, and especially to those who have seen it and who love it as much as I do. Was the set worth the money? Yeah, even if it is a fucking lie. Anyway, thank you all so much. God bless you all, and goodbye.